Good evening, everyone. My name is David, BDG3369. This is my actually first YouTube video. Decided to go ahead and jump on in, throw my 2 cents in. This is, again, like I said, the first of a couple of videos I want to do product reviews on. And the first one up to bat is here in front of me, the Panasonic FZ-150. I bought this as an upgrade from my previous Canon SX20 SX20 camera. Sorry about that. Wanted to upgrade to a CMOS chip. Of course, you know the SX20 had a CCD chip, a small chip at that. Not gonna go over every little detail. Just you know, my overall opinion of certain things. Feel free to comment. You know, after you look at this video, give me your opinions and feedback. If you got any questions, just ask me, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. First thing I want to talk about is the build quality. I mean, overall, I'm very, impressed, by Panasonic. The camera is very lightweight, in the hands. Doesn't feel heavy at all, even, with the lens, extended, stuff like that. The display screen is pretty decent. The picture quality is very nice. I want to talk about a couple of, and then also too, has the flash, pop-out flash and stuff like that, so it's good for short distances and stuff like that. If you need to get further or light up a larger area or add more flash power, of course you get the flash for your hot shoe. I'm going to go into a couple of features here with the button placements. Of course, your standard mode dial, different program modes, scene modes and stuff like that. For the most part, it's solid, it's firm. When you turn, the clicks are very solid and firm. It's not flimsy or anything like that. The clicks are very, I don't know if you can hear that. It's very firm. Very durable. To the right of that is the on and off switch. Right above it is the burst mode. Above it is the video recording button, which you can record videos on the fly as you're taking pictures. Like I said, you have a standard hot shoe. And one quick mental note: if you're going to stick with only using the internal flash, okay, you got to take this lens hood off. Otherwise, you'll see a black spot on your photos, in the middle of your photos, and basically what it is that this portion of the lens hood blocks out power from the flash. So in all your pictures, you'll see like a little black dot or black spot on the bottom of your pictures right here on the bottom. So if you're going to use this on camera flash, take the lens hood off. And then also too, like when you get the lens hood for the first time and you put it on the camera, it may seem like it's hard to snap in. Just give it a little bit of elbow grease, it'll snap right in place. Not a problem. So just a mental note, for everybody to know that. And then also here on the side, you have extra buttons on the side for your zoom and the wide angle. You also have a switch here that gives you the option of to let your camera focus automatically, autofocus macro, which I've tested it out a couple of times. It does a pretty good job. And then manual focus. Now of course for manual focus you have to use the focus button right here, and then also use the either the dial here in the back or use the zoom control on the side to manual focus. I never really used that. I never really used that feature. I mean, I just prefer autofocus. Autofocus works fine for me. There have been times where I wanted a little more depth of field control. But 9 times out of 10, the camera is pretty much spot on in terms of focus. Focusing is very quick. Again, like I said, I give credit where credit is due. On the back here, you have a display button, which allows you to control different aspects of the display. And while I'm mentioning the display right now, I don't know if you notice here, you'll see here on the screen it's kind of light, and you got this shaded area on the bottom and on the top. That is from when you select through the menu your aspect ratios. And then, like I said, right now it's set to 4:3 aspect ratio. When you change it to 3:2 or any other aspect ratio, the frame changes. So basically, it lets you know exactly what's going to be in the picture and what's not going to be in the picture, which I just discovered that less than 10 minutes ago, and I thought that, wow, that's pretty cool. So without any problems, you can see, like here, you see a little grayed out area, and everything inside will let you know that's what's going to be in the picture, which I think is a very cool and nifty idea. Something Nikon and Canon should take note of. Then also below that, you have the quick menu button, which allows you to quick access to your most immediate functions. As you can see, you can change on the fly from HD to VGA to full HD. You can also change from your picture size, video aspect ratio, your different white balances, metering modes, flash. Panasonic really put some thought, into this. This quick menu, makes a lot of things easy. Makes a lot of things easier to work with, stuff like that. And also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, which I have to reread again. Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. Function button right here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that well enough. The function button allows you to, hold on, let me come out of this for a second. It allows you to set that function button, program that function button to any feature you want to come up on the fly on the camera. And like for myself, I just have the white balance, because normally I just change my white balance more than anything. But I believe you can change to different scene modes, shutter, ISOs on the fly, so you don't have to worry about having to go into the menu, search and stuff like that. As far as with the menu, it may to some be a little bit overwhelming. Like I said, this has like on a playback menu or it's a record menu, has 7 different levels. So basically, you just you scroll through. It gets pretty pretty intense. Like for myself, I really don't worry about too many of the other features unless I need them. And like I said, I have the function button right here from a white balance, so that's pretty much all that I'm concerned about. Let's see, what else can I think of right off the bat? Oh, like I said, the quick menu also serves as a delete button. Now, the only drawback to when you have to delete a picture on the fly, after you take a picture. Let's see, I'm gonna take a picture here, but I can't take a picture of this flash. Hold on here. Of course, it's not working. Oh, I guess I'm too close. Hold on. I guess my exposure's too high. So hold on a second. Let me drop this down. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in manual mode. No wonder. I'm gonna drop in the program real quick. And while I mention this, got it in program mode. So I'm gonna take a picture. Oh, you know what? I think I took it. Oh yeah, it would help to put it in autofocus, David. I put it in autofocus. Like I said, it takes it focuses really quick. For the most part, so I'm taking a picture, and usually most of some cameras, you can delete stuff on the fly. This one you have to bring up the playback menu. I mean, it's not a deal breaker. Stuff like that. Like I say, it's just a little bit more involved, in the deleting process. Also, what I've noticed, actually, before I get to that part, let me finish the rest of the features of the camera. Video quality, for the most part, it is pretty decent. When there's plenty of light, it's pretty decent. Of course, naturally, when it's low light, maybe some issues and problems. One thing I've come across, like when I start pushing video on the fly, the display screen kind of gets a little dim. I'm not sure if that's the actual recording quality or how the camera's metering. I haven't figured that out yet. I know in some situations, when there's decent amount of light, the pitch is fine. And then also when the same amount of light, I'm in a different situation, same amount of light, but then the screen kind of gets a little dim. So I haven't figured that part out yet. Still, going through somewhat of a learning curve coming from Canon to Panasonic. But overall, I am pretty much satisfied with this camera. Let's see, I mentioned certain things about the button placement and stuff like that. Now, granted, for lack of a better word, I wish the camera could be a little bit bigger in terms of the body size, because as you can see, I got big hands, and you know, it took me a while to kind of get used to having my thumb here, you know, versus coming from another camera where my thumb was a little more, you know, raised up a little higher. Sometimes, you know, the buttons, you know, I'm used to the buttons now. You know, it took me a minute to get used to, you know, shooting with the buttons and stuff like that. You know, just getting the feel for it and stuff like that. You know, there are times where sometimes I do feel myself when I hold the camera. You know, I find myself, you know, feel, you know, I'm squeezing, you know, buttons and stuff like that. You know, but you know, like I said, I've overcome that. It's just a matter of being able to adapt to, you know, the camera and stuff like that. A cool thing feature here is the, I don't know if you can see it, the exposure exposure LCD button. So basically, on the fly, you can switch between, you know, LCD, you know, and viewfinder, which, you know, is pretty cool. So you don't have to go through a menu or anything like that. Viewfinder is pretty nice. You know, I find myself using it quite often when I want a little bit more, you know, tighter control, you know, for us focusing and positioning of the camera. Auto exposure, autofocus lock, you know, works, you know, very nicely. Display button here. Let's see. Let me get this. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. It's much better. Display button allows you to, of course, you know, have different modes of your display. So, you know, depending on how much information you want, you know, on your screen while you're taking a picture, you know, that's, you know, clearly up to you. Playback button, like I said, for the most part, you know, in order to view your pictures, naturally to push the playback button. Now, one thing I do kind of miss from coming from a Canon camera, a Canon point and shoot, was the fact that even though if the camera was off, all I would have to do was just long press the playback button on it, and then the images would come back, you know, in playback mode. Unfortunately, you know, with this Panasonic model, you have to turn the camera on, you know, to, you know, play back, you know, your images and stuff like that. Now, the lens and everything will go back to sleep mode after, you know, so much inactivity of not using, you know, the camera features itself. So, you know, you can go to the playback button, just like all the other point and shoots. You know, you adjust your zoom dial by the shutter button, you know, to you know, zoom in, zoom out, you know, go through different grid displays and stuff like that. What else can I think of? Oh, you know, so hold on, let me think. Oops, didn't mean to do that either. So let me see, go back. Okay. So basically, like I said, you know, button placement is a little tight. The buttons are a little bit small, but one thing I do like about this model, compared to other Panasonic models that I've seen, is that you can actually see the lettering, you know, on the camera itself. You know, Panasonic has some models whereas the lettering is just pretty much the same color as the button itself, so it's kind of hard to read, you know, what specifically that button does. ISO, you know, goes down to 100, you know, and then, you know, the intelligent ISO all the way up to 6400, and you know, having a I'm sorry, 32, I'm sorry, not 64, 3200 ISO. You know, I've really was amazed. You know, I had to kind of learn the hard way about the difference between CMOS chips and CCD chips, and after reading and stuff like that, you know, decided to, you know, take a gamble, you know, upgrade, you know, because, you know, get away from the noise and graininess that you have in most point and shoot cameras when it comes to low light quality. Speaking of low light quality, this camera, you know, it is phenomenal. When it comes to low light, you see little to barely no noise or pixelation in the viewfinder. It brings out the darks. It brings out the colors in dark areas. You know, it's like you're shooting in a room against a bright window. It handles the window, you know, properly. You know, doesn't blow it out. Where normally you see dark areas or, you know, dark contrast, it brings it out. So like if you in a room, you see a brown box. You know, most cameras, you know, you shoot in a room with a bright window, that brown box will turn black because most cameras can't handle the dynamic range. But this camera, it does that. You know, very well. ISOs are, you know, pretty solid, pretty stable. I've taken shots here throughout my house. The 24x zoom is pretty decent. You know, not not a bad upgrade, you know, for my S620 point and shoot camera from Canon. Let me see. Let's say I mentioned about the video and stuff like that. The microphone, I haven't really tested it out fully. You know, like I said, you know, I primarily bought this camera for the picture quality, not for the video. You know, my thing is, you know, a lot of people give, you know, point and shoot camera manufacturers and manufacturers in general a hard time about, you know, video quality in most cameras. And my thing is this, you know, this is a point and shoot camera. It is a camera first, video camera second. So if you want a video camera, if you want good video quality, you buy a video camera, you know. And again, like I said, you know, it's decent for me. You know, I didn't primarily buy this camera for the video quality. It's a nice added bonus. And my main thing was, as long as I can get good, excellent, sharp pictures in low light, excellent dynamic range. You know, it handles the, you know, a scene where there's brights and darks, you know, very well. Extremely good detail and stuff like that without having to crank up the file size, you know, of your image. And let's see, what else could I think of? See, I talked about low light. Oh yeah, pixelation again. You know, little to no pixelation. You know, unless you really have to look for it. I mean, you really have to look for it in order to find it, especially when you zoom in. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the flash. Normally, I have not used a flash here in the camera. I barely used it. You know, to me, it's a waste of time. I went ahead and decided to get an external flash, you know, for this camera. But in all honesty, the flashes, you know, they have for this camera, they suck. I mean, to me, they really suck. They look cheesy, and then on top of that, they're way too expensive. You know, way too expensive. You know, made by Panasonic, manufactured by Panasonic. So after some research and stuff like that, I decided to get this Metz Mechablix 24 AF1. Much cheaper, you know, than the Panasonic, you know, on-camera flashes. Looks way better than the Panasonic flashes. And then another cool thing is you can control the flash power output through the menu of the camera. You know, so most people worry about whether or not if you can get some good, decent usability, you know, from a flash or good compatibility. So this Metz flash is for Panasonic and Olympus models. You know, it has a bounce head, so you know, I mean, it's great for bouncing stuff off the ceilings and stuff like that. Only uses two AA batteries, which eventually I will slap some lithium batteries in here. But you know, it's solid. You know, again, like I said, you can control the flash output from the camera. And speaking of flash outputs, the one thing I want to show you guys, which I thought was a very cool feature, on the fly, you can control exposure. What this mode does is it gives you the option to either darken your exposure, lighten your exposure, you know, without necessarily having to affect the flash output. You know, so like if you're outside, you nice, you know, sunny day, you want to darken the skies out, make it a little bit more bluer. You know, you can just, you know, adjust it on the fly. You know, you don't have to go through a deep menu to bring that up. Hit this top button again, you have what's called the auto bracket feature. Now what this auto bracket feature does is you select oh sorry, hold on, I'm moving too fast. You decide how it's going to take 3 shots, one under, one exact, and one above. So you decide, you know how much of a range, and then once you hit OK, you hit the shutter button. It will take 3 successive shots, one below, one at, and one above in terms of your exposure. You know, so I figure that's a pretty cool feature, and it's a good way to kind of combine your images. You know, you can get your darks, you get your midtones, you get your highs, and you know, come out with a decent, you know, picture. And then also too, on the fly, you can adjust your flash output. So again, you know, with your flash, you know, on the camera, stuff like that, you can adjust, you know, how much flash, you know, output you want. You know, at the +2, -2. You know, for me, it works out great. So like for me, this camera allows you to do a lot of customization in certain situations, whereas if I want less flash, more flash, more exposure, less exposure. I mean, I have to tip my hat off to Panasonic. They really pack some features in this camera. Also, I want to mention, like when you're in program mode, which in most situations, let's see if I can get it. Most situations, you turn your camera to program mode. Camera picks the shutter speed and aperture for you. No big deal. But Panasonic took it a step further. What they allow you to do is, in this situation here, you can go plus 1/3 exposure, plus 2/3, down, on the fly. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to say it also allows you to pick the aperture as well. So, like for example, let me see if I can remember. I'm doing this from memory, so please forgive me. It's a lot to kind of talk about this camera. Let me see here. I think. Okay, but it'll come to me in a second. But basically, in the program mode, it'll give you the aperture and shutter speed that it picks. If you don't like the aperture, so like you want more depth of field, in your shot, basically you just punch in the dial here, and then make your adjustment. I'm still trying to figure that part out, because sometimes you'll see it and sometimes you don't see it. I think 2/3 plus 1. Yeah, it would allow you to pick which aperture, then it'll pick the appropriate shutter speed, which I thought was pretty pretty nifty, pretty neat. Let's see, aperture priority, as well, same thing. You want plus or minus, and then you push the button in to adjust your aperture. It picks the shutter speed, again, on the fly. And again, like I said, you got the quick menu here. So basically, on the fly, want to change your flash power, change the photo style, as far as the type of picture you want, standard, vivid, natural, monochrome, and scenery. Now, a brief mention about monochrome with this camera here. If you monochrome, shoots monochrome, but now if you want to shoot black and white, you have to switch your camera to scene mode. If I remember correctly, switch to scene mode, hit the menu, and then you go through the different scenes. And I'm trying to hopefully find it in here. Maybe it's not in here. Hold on. It will come to me in 1 second. Please forgive me. I'm trying to remember all the stuff in my head on the fly. But yeah, you go through a different mode, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. It is the creative mode, and I believe it's not the creative mode. Oh, gee, Dave, you forgot. Oh, that's bad. It'll come to me in a second. But basically, I'm trying to remember. Custom. Okay, that's 3 custom modes. I meant to mention that it has 3 custom modes, so you can have 3 different settings, stuff like that. Again, this is going to come to me because I know it has a black and white feature on here, and it will come to me in the next century. So anyway, it'll come to me in a second. So basically, again, you have total creative freedom. You're not restricted. Some of the menu features, are pretty decent, with this camera. Like I said, I tip my head off to Panasonic, and I'm about to mention about the burst mode. Now, to get to the burst mode, you push this button right here. It says burst mode, and then depending on how you have it set, let me see me come out of that mode. Depending on how you have it set, it will either shoot 2 frames, 5.5 frames, 12, 40, 60. So basically 40 or 60 is electronic shutter. So basically the file size, of course, naturally is reduced. Hold on a little bit better. So again, 12 frames, you get a maximum 10.5 megapixel frame. 5.5, you have 5.5 with it without autofocus, and you have 5.5 with autofocus. So basically, if you just want a quick burst, you're not caring about whether or not the picture's in focus or not, you switch it to 5.5. If you want all the shots in auto and to be in focus, you select autofocus. Same thing with two burst shots. Again, autofocus, well, not autofocus, non-autofocus and autofocus. The 12 burst mode, I believe, is non-autofocus. So basically, once you hit that button, it fires off like a machine gun. Before you know it, you have 12 shots, done. So basically, the 2, 5.5, and 12, those are all mechanical shutter. And then the 40 is the 40 and 60 are electronic shutter. So you have 40 burst mode, 60 burst mode. File size is reduced down to 4.5, and the 60 burst is 3 megapixels. So again, I don't know why you need that many, but hey, somebody might find a use for it. So I haven't gone through all of the features of this camera yet. I'm still, learning about it. Taking it out. In fact, I'll be taking it out tomorrow. Let's see. Timer, standard timer, 2 off in 2 seconds, 10 seconds. Oh, I'm off. How could I forget to mention LCD screen? LCD screen is great. Sorry about that, the glare. Again, having an articulated screen, I can't do without it. I mean, some people, it's not a deal breaker for them, but for me, after getting accustomed to having it for so long, my next camera will definitely have an articulated screen. But I doubt if I do anything beyond this camera here. This camera pretty much fills the bill with everything that I need. I'm trying to think also too. Lens. Well, yeah, lens. I mean, I recommend that you buy a lens adapter to cover your initial lens, so it doesn't get scratched or anything like that, or gets damaged. But like I said, overall, I am very satisfied. I hope this kind of helps some of you make a decision. Like myself, when I was considering buying this camera, it was a decision between this and the Canon HS40. I'm sorry, Canon SX40. I'm sorry, Canon SX40. Point and shoot camera, same build style as this, same megapixels, roughly same size sensor. But I decided to go with this because after having Canon for so long, knowing Canon, sometimes they give you little incremental upgrades with the cameras. They don't necessarily go all out. I mean, it's still much better, let's say, compared to Nikon, because my full line of professional equipment is Nikon equipment, but when it comes to point and shoots, Nikon sucks. So Canon has gotten a big jump on it, and then came across this little camera here, this camera here, and I read up on it. Was very impressed with it. I read a lot of reviews about it and stuff like that. So I just went ahead and took a gamble, and I haven't regretted it since. So again, I hope this helps out everyone as far as what you're looking for. I'm trying to think stuff that I may have missed. Again, like I said, it has a black and white mode, but it also has a mono mode and it has a black and white mode. I can't think of it right now. My mind has a brain fart. So again, my name is David, BDG3369. If you have any questions or concerns, or comments, feel free to leave them on the below the video feed, and that's it. So thank you very much. Bye.